Oh, very good evening on a Monday night, and welcome to the West Ham Weekly. I'm sure you all know me by now. I've got a guest that's coming on in a minute. We're going to talk all about Declan Rice. It was kind of a pretty sort of quiet day for news, and then I thought I'd send out a WhatsApp message to find out if anything's going on. And I was told nothing. And then at about 4 o'clock, I got a message back going, "Oh, I've got something for you." And I thought, well, it's already been announced anyway. And I thought I'll take you through. I'll tell you a little story. If anyone remembers Max Bygraves, if you're that old and you remember Max Bygraves, he always used to start his show by going, "I'll tell you a little story." Hang on a minute. Just fucking cats, mate. Right. So I'm going to tell you a little story. And I'll get into the chat in a minute, and I'll bring my guest on in a minute. You all know him. He's great. He's a great guest. He should be more than a guest, but anyway, that's another matter. So what's this little gem? Well, it is, of course, all about Declan Rice, as we all know. And the latest is what I hope doesn't become a long and protracted saga in the transfer window. As broken by 6'2" earlier this evening, David Sullivan is personally dealing with the Declan Rice transfer, and there are no other agents or intermediaries getting involved in between Sean Rice, Arsenal, and West Ham United. Sullivan sees this as a very simple transaction. If Arsenal wants their man, they need to do is pay the price that he set, and he'll go and play for Arsenal. And what is that price? Well, we kept hearing rumours that anything just around 100 million will do. 80 million plus 20 million add-ons, 90 million plus 10 million add-ons, etc. No, Sullivan's having none of it. As far as he's concerned, it's at least 110 million plus 10 million add-ons. Now, look, come on. We know that might change a little bit, but what Sullivan's aiming to do is he's aiming to achieve the price that we set on Declan Rice this time last year, 120 million pounds. Will he get it? I don't know, but he's absolutely determined to break the British record transfer fee for a footballer. And as far as he's concerned, 110 million pounds plus 10 million add-ons, or 105 plus 15 million add-ons, or whatever it may be, to get it to around about that 120 million pound mark is what he's looking for. Now, dare I say that something close to that will suffice. Like I said, he wants a good payment structure. He wants to make sure that we don't get paid over 500 years like Arsenal offered with their first two bids. He wants something reasonable. He wants a payment structure that's going to be over at least 3 years, and he wants the add-ons to be realistic add-ons. Look, we know that Arsenal may well go and win the league and the Champions League and all that, etc. But the way Arsenal put it, especially with the first bid, which was 60 million plus 15 million add-ons, and then the second bid being 75 million and 15 million add-ons, was all about, the money was spread over something like 6 years. The add-ons were about winning the league and winning the Champions League 2 seasons in a row and all that sort of stuff. So we got to that impasse. And nothing happened over the weekend, at the end of last week, over the weekend, etc. And at this point, nothing is still. We hear that a third bid is likely to come in anytime now, probably in the next day or so. And of course, what that's happened, what that's allowed things to do is it's allowed other teams to start looking, especially the two Manchester teams. Last week, we heard that maybe Man United might be interested with a player and cash scenario, and there was rumour that McTominay and Maguire would be a swap deal with money involved as well. But with Man United having their bit of turmoil in all this buyout, are they going to be bought out? Aren't they going to be bought out, etc.? It looks like that not really that much in the running. And then we heard apparently Man City had spoken to Declan Rice, or at least spoken to his representatives, and were planning to make a bid. So we were waiting, weren't we, last week? We were waiting for that bid to come through. Nothing materialized. Now, look, it's understood that Man City do not want to be seen to be entering a race for the player when they don't really have an assurance that the player himself is really interested in joining that club. They want 100% assurance. They want to know that if they're going to put a bid in, that they want to get their man. They don't want to go into this bidding war. They don't want to go into some protracted long saga with Rice. They want to know if he wants to join them, and if he does, they'll go ahead and put a bid in. And I have no doubt if Man City enter the race, they will put the money on the table, what we want. So why all the hesitancy? Well, throughout last week, we heard stories that despite any offers being made by any other team, Declan Rice has set his heart on joining Arsenal. Or that's what we were told. And then we were told that there's this, rumor mill going on behind him. They've got a PR company that's pushing that rhetoric, etc. I don't honestly know if that's true or not. And I'll let you guys decide if you think he really only wants to join, if he's pushing that rhetoric or not. I doubt we will know, things that have been heavily rumored. They are only rumors until you actually hear it from the horse's mouth that Declan Rice's camp has been pushing this story. You can't say for certain. Now, I kind of honestly don't care who ends up buying Declan Rice. Well, I do and I don't. I've got my personal opinion. I think you all have your own opinions. If Rice is really serious about winning trophies, etc., you've got to ask yourself, then why not Man City and why Arsenal? Don't get me wrong. Arsenal's an attractive team. It's a young team. It's got a young manager. But it's a work in progress. And to be challenging for trophies such as the Champions League, etc., I think for now is probably beyond their reach for the foreseeable future. I remember, old enough to remember in the night. Well, it's not that long ago, but in the 90s when Alex Ferguson was trying to win the Champions League, and how he progressed. He took steps every season, getting into the Champions League, taking a step further, a step further, a step further. And it took him something like 5 or 6 seasons before he was successful. And watching him, one of our finest British managers of all time, how long it took him, it could take Arsenal as long, if not longer. So why does Declan Rice want to be joining Arsenal over Man City? Look, they've got a great manager, a very decent manager, Arteta, a decent young coach, a bright young coach. He will get success at some point in his career. I'm sure about that. But the understanding is that Declan Rice wants to be part of a project where he's a big cog in the wheel rather than a small cog in a bigger wheel. So for him, from my understanding, is he wants to join a club like Arsenal so he can help them achieve success. Will he do so or not? I don't know. Whereas going to Man City, you could almost say it's a given. If he joined Man City this summer, you'd almost argue that by next summer he'll be he'll be a Premier League winner. He'll have that championship medal. And will they go as far as winning the Champions League again as well? I don't know. But this is what apparently why it attracts Rice to join Arsenal over Man City, because he feels he can help push them to actually get to achieve those winning the Premier League, winning the Champions League, etc. So what other reasons? Well, if that's the case, if Declan Rice is determined to go to Arsenal, then why don't we just let him? Well, this is the thing. If the rumours are true that Declan Rice, only wants Arsenal, and if the rumours are also true that Arteta has actually said, no matter what, we're going to get our man, it brings David Sullivan into the fold, and he'll be sitting there in the middle going, well, you want to go to Arsenal. Arsenal really want you. Then why should I sell you for anything less than I think you're worth? Because this is what apparently the story now is. Apparently, Arteta has said that he will do anything he can to actually get Declan Rice at Arsenal. If that's the case, Sullivan doesn't need to go and sell Declan Rice at a cut price rate. That's probably why they only offered 60 million in the first place. It's probably why they only came back with a 75 million offer in the second place. All David Sullivan has to do is say, if that's who you want, if you want the player, you've got to pay the price that we're asking for. Is he right? Is he wrong? Is he in control? I kind of think the cards are stacked up a little bit against Arsenal, because the story goes tonight that if Arsenal don't offer the money that we want for him, Declan Rice isn't going anywhere. If no other club comes in for him, Declan Rice isn't going anywhere. He will remain a West Ham player if the bid that Sullivan is expecting doesn't arrive. Is that good for us or is that bad for us? One of the stories last week was that we ain't going to have an awful lot of money to spend in the transfer window, and we're kind of reliant on Declan Rice to be sold in order to bolster the squad. Well, if we don't sell Declan Rice, that's one area that we don't need to strengthen. He'll be there for another season. But if we do, and we get the 100, 110 million, whatever it's going to be, then you've got some money in the bank to actually go and strengthen in maybe 3 positions with 110 million. But there is money coming from elsewhere if we need to sell, or if we do end up selling. The next biggest asset, of course, at the moment, take Paqueta aside for one moment, because I think those stories about him with a new agency, etc., could materialize into something, might not. But we've got other players. We've got like Scamacca. If he goes back to Italy, he's worth about 30 million. We've got Johnson, 8 million. Antonio and or Ings, 10 million each? We can generate maybe 40, 50 million. The board might put in another 20 or 30 million. With the Declan Rice money, you're looking at nearly 200 million pounds all in. Without the Declan Rice money, you're looking at maybe 80, 90 million pounds, give or take. So either way, we're not in a lose-lose situation. If we don't sell Declan Rice, he stays. We don't need to replace him. And we strengthen around him with maybe another 3 players. If we do sell Declan Rice, then maybe we go out and get another 4 or 5 players to strengthen the squad. Look, it's been rumoured, and I don't know how much of this rumour is true, that apparently Arsenal are now looking elsewhere. The story out today that they're looking at Monaco's central midfielder, Youssouf Fofana. Indeed, a decent player, French international. He'll come at a price an awful lot cheaper than Declan Rice, 30 odd million pounds, something like that, as opposed to the 100 odd million that we're asking for Rice. So is Rice that much better? You look at the stats and you might consider that perhaps he is. Things like pass attempts, higher pass success rate, better aerial and ground duel success rate, more clearances, more blocks, more interceptions, more goals, you name it. And the difference, of course, is Declan Rice has done it in the Premier League, whereas Fofana has done it in the French League. So who really is in charge? I just wonder, and we'll see what you've got to say in a moment, see what Dan's got to say, what you think. I kind of feel that Sullivan, at this moment in time, is probably thinking that he is in the driving seat. Good evening, Dan. How are you, mate?
Yeah, good, mate. Good. Very interesting listening to you talk about that. Obviously, I kind of look at it from the back seat, just sitting on Twitter and Facebook and whatnot and seeing rumour mill. But I don't know. I've got my opinions, mate. I've got my opinions on the whole saga. I'm quite chilled out about the whole thing because we've known the day was coming. So I've had no worries about, Declan Rice being sold. I think, every West Ham fan knew that it was eventually going to come that point where he felt like he had outgrown the club. And so we kind of knew that point was coming. My issue has been, the thing I've been quite vocal and opinionated on is the offers. There's been a price that was put in place, 18 months ago, 100 to 120 million. That was the price. It's always been the price. And then we've got down to it. And then all these clubs are like, we're desperate to sign him, but yet none of them are willing to pay the money. Yeah. And I've said from day one where Arsenal were concerned, I don't think they have the financial muscle to buy him. I think, look, if you're any player looking at that Arsenal project after the season they've just had, it's probably quite an attractive, proposition project club to go to. Young up and coming manager. They've just finished second in the Prem. I don't think it happens next year with the addition of Champions League football, though. So then them add-ons instantly become null and void. They're not winning the Premier League or the Champions League anytime soon. And so the offers have got to be better. The fact we're potentially going to get into this bidding war now, Sullivan must be rubbing his hands. If he's in control, like you say, he must be sitting there because he has got... And do you know what? We give the board a lot of stick, but if he is seriously sitting back and he's saying 110 million plus add-ons, that's it, or he's not going, fair play to him. You've got to say that because he's our biggest asset at the club that's going to generate money exactly going forward.
Mate. We the club have been accused in the past of wasting money, squandering money when it comes to players, buying players for a massive amount of money, selling them for a knockdown price, always losing money in the transfer window, never doing well. Now that we've got a massive asset on our hands, and we've known this for a good couple of seasons. Surely we hold out. I mean, how serious are Arsenal? I'm sure they are, aren't they? They're serious that they
Yeah,
want
but they
the
don't come
player.
off very serious when they're offering, you know, 90 million pound, 15 of it's add-ons that are unrealistic, and the rest of it's over 6 years. That's not
Yeah,
serious. That
it's
that
not.
screams that screams to me that you're desperate for the player, but financially you cannot make it happen.
Yeah, I think the same. Is there a likelihood then that, I mean, we Declan Rice, look, I've seen all the stories about people are going to boo him and all that sort of stuff, which I think is a big shame. He has been a good servant to us, and he has been promised the move, etc. Sullivan, by actually coming out and saying, we got a gentleman's agreement in place, etc. If he doesn't go, Sullivan's kept his promise, hasn't he? Well, we offered, but no one's come in and paid for you.
See, I'm a bit 50-50 on this. I think everybody's entitled to kind of act the way they want to act. If you want to boo, that's up to you. I personally won't, but I do have the opinion that I think that Arsenal is the easy way out, right? And what Arsenal screams to me as well is that he's just desperate to leave. It's got nothing to do with ambition or trophies. If he goes to Arsenal, for me, it's just that he wants to leave West Ham, and it's the safe bet. There'll be less pressure because let's be honest, if he goes to Manchester City, he's going into a treble winning team and they're going to be expected to do it again. He's going to be expected to go in and replace, Gundogan, who's just left, take on that role and kind of do the job he did. There's going to be a lot of pressure on him if he goes to City. There'll be pressure at Arsenal, but it'll be less, and it's a young team. They're going to mould that team around him and a few others. It's very, very different, but it just screams the easy way out. He ain't, the big thing is that apparently you don't want to leave London. Like, come on, like this is football. This is your career.
Yeah.
You're telling me if Real Madrid come knocking, you're going to go, no, I'm not coming because I like London too much. You're going. It's the biggest club in the world.
Well, this is it, mate, isn't it? I mean, if a club like Real Madrid or if Bayern were really serious about, they turned around and they've admitted, they said he's too much, costs us too much money. I don't, we can't pay that. But if Real Madrid or Barcelona or a team like that came in, are you really? I mean, I get it. I get the whole family thing, and I respect that. Actually, I absolutely do. Of course, you want to do what's right. He's got a young family, but Manchester isn't exactly a million miles away, is it?
No, it's not, mate. It's not
A couple of hours away.
It's doable, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? And you've got to look at it as well. Everyone's going to have their opinions on every club, aren't they? But if there's two clubs, put in front of you, but both going to pay the fee, one's just won the treble, and the other one's like trying to emulate what they're doing with this new, young, exciting team. I know, and I can't believe there's a lot of people out there saying, yeah, but the project's more interesting because he's just going to go there and guarantee it. Well, Bryce has been saying from day one he wants to win the Prem and the Champions League. Well, if he goes to Manchester City, that's where he's going to have the best chance of doing it. So that's why it screams to me that Arsenal, for me, would just be the easy way out. It'd have nothing to do with ambition. It'd just be that he wants out of West Ham, in my opinion.
Why then, mate? This is, I think, what I think is getting a little bit up West Ham fans' backs. When all the statements came out about, I want to play Champions League, I want to win things, I want to look back at my career. Do you remember he said something like, I want to look back my career and I want to sort of like, he wants to show the trophies and all that sort of stuff. What do you think of this thing about, going to a club like, if the rumor is true, going to a club like Arsenal and wanting to be a big cog in that wheel, to help drive them to. I get that, but look, no, I've got no disrespect for Arsenal. I think they play very attractive. I'd like us to play the type of football they play, very attractive football, etc. A young team and all that sort of stuff. But they are, with the greatest of respect to them, they're a good few years away. I sort of compared them to the Alex Ferguson era of 99, and I remember watching that develop. 1 year they could be knocked out in the group stages, and next year they'll go to maybe a quarter final, and then it took years. Arsenal are up against big teams.
The thing that I think that a lot of people are, and especially the Arsenal fans in particular, I think that there's a few of them that need a good slice of humble pie. They're coming off the back of a good season. They think they're this elite club, all over again. And what they need to consider is that Arsenal's schedule is going to be busier than it was this year,
Yep.
because you're adding Champions League football to it. Chelsea didn't qualify for Europe, right? Chelsea are not going to have the same season they had last year, all that turmoil going on. They're going to
No.
sort that club out. They've got a very good manager in place and they've got no European football to worry about. So
And
Chelsea
they'll
ain't
just
going to
go
be,
for it.
they're not going to be where they were.
Yeah.
Tottenham are not going to have the sort of pressures they've had, last season. That's going to be a very different club. Liverpool are not going to have an off year like they had. They're going to sort their midfield out. Honestly, Liverpool are like 3 players away from the Liverpool of a few years ago.
Yeah.
They're just, their midfield got old. That is literally
Yeah.
all that happened. So you've got to look at that. There's 3 clubs there that are all going to sort themselves out and strengthen. They're not going to have the same blip that they had last year. And if Man United can get themselves sorted with the sale of the club and then start bringing in the players that they want, that again, United are not going to struggle. They were very up and down, but still managed to finish top 4.
Yeah.
Arsenal are then in a mix of 6 or 7 very good clubs that are all going to be vying for those top 4, and their schedule's busier. There's no guarantees with Arsenal. For me, Arsenal is a sideways step. He could move to Arsenal, he could be there 4 years and win nothing. There is no guarantees at Arsenal because it's a project. I don't see Arsenal as being that much bigger than us. They've got a better squad, potentially, better facilities, but there's no guarantees at Arsenal. The same way there's no guarantees with us. We've just gone into a season where we were in a competition that we all thought, potentially we could get to the final, maybe we'd win it. We'd have an half decent Premier League season, finish top 10. We were in a relegation battle for the majority of it. No one really see that coming. So there's just no guarantees in football. And unless you're one of these super elite clubs, there's just no guarantees. And I just think that it is for me, it's such a sideways step.
It's a project, isn't it? And I think, what would they sign Declan Rice on? I mean, in order to achieve that project, he'll have to sign like an 8-year contract or something, wouldn't he?
Yeah.
And in order to make sure that something may come out of it. Something. Let's not put Arsenal down completely. I
don't think you can. I don't think you're allowed to sign contracts that long anymore. Chelsea cocked that up for everyone.
Chelsea cocked that up, didn't they? Yeah.
I think it's 5 years.
Yeah, I mean, look, this isn't a bashing Arsenal show. This isn't about that. It's just about trying to understand what's going on. And this story today about Sullivan basically going, well, I don't care. I want what I think he's worth. Is he wrong? Are we deluded, Dan? Are we deluded to want so much money for one of the best midfielders, certainly in Europe?
Look, the way I always look at this is that everyone's going to have their opinions on the valuation of a player, but a player should be valued on what he's worth to the club. Yeah. There's been a lot of interest in a few Crystal Palace. Just if we just take a sideways step away from West Ham, just so that it's from a bit more of a neutral standpoint. But there's a lot of interest in Eze and Elise at Crystal Palace, and Crystal Palace have basically come out and said they want 60 million for one, 70 million for the other, and everyone's got laughed at them. But that's how much those players are worth to that football club, because they are a far worse off club without them. Now, we are well within our rights to ask for 120 million, because if we're really being honest, it's going to take 120 million just to paper over the cracks that Declan's going to leave in the midfield. You cannot buy a player to replace him. We're simply not a big enough football club. We cannot. We've got to go out and buy and be very astute in the market and maybe buy 2 centre midfielders. I'd say a holding player and one to sit next to Paqueta in midfield, and they've got to be able to do a combative job in there. They've got to be a bit more technical, better on the ball. But it's going to take 120 million just to buy them 2 players. Because
probably. I suggested, if we got 120 million, we might be able to get 3 players out of it.
Yeah,
people are asking questions about Tim Steidten, and when's he coming in? I heard again today he is going to be announced this week. And I tell you something, that fills me with, I'm excited, to bring someone of his caliber in. And people ask, well, why would he want to choose West Ham over? I did a show on it about him yesterday, the day before, I think yesterday, and suggested that Steidten, his career's only ever been football-wise, apart from a blip in America, football-wise and coaching-wise, etc. It's always been in Germany. He's coming out of his environment, so to speak, going into another league. And I think West Ham United could be an ideal platform for him, where, it's a club at the level where he'll go, I think I can do something here. He'll cut his teeth at somewhere like West Ham. And then when the big guns come calling for him again, I mean, Chelsea are after him, Liverpool have spoken to him, etc. He might go, I'll give it a couple of years, 2 or 3 years, maybe at West Ham. And then if I'm successful, the world's my oyster. Now, can you imagine Steidten coming in? If he's told, what would he prefer? Would he prefer we're keeping Declan Rice and you've got 70 million to buy a few players, or we're selling Declan Rice and you've got 120 million to buy a few players? For someone of his caliber who can pick up someone for a bargain, Moussa Diaby, 17 million pounds when he was at PSG languishing. Patrick Schick, when he went big money deal to Roma, didn't do so well, went to Bayern for 23 million. He's got an eye, hasn't he?
Yeah.
What would he prefer? What would he prefer?
I don't know, to be honest with you. Still, at the end of the day, if you, for people that are not, are not aware of his work, go and look at the. Someone mocked up an 11 that he's bought for Leverkusen.
I had it on. I had it on the other day. Yeah,
and honestly, there's some of the world's best young footballers in that
De
list.
Bruyne.
It's
insane.
Took
him on loan from Chelsea.
Yeah, and he has got an eye for talent, and we've needed someone like that because we've always signed slightly older, more seasoned players, haven't we? I'm not talking 30 plus, but we always seem to buy them sort of late 20s, and we're at a point with our squad, if you look at it, where we really do need to start bringing in some young players, and start packing out the squad, with the young players that are good enough to play. Not these players that are going to get thrown in the academy and everyone forgets about them and then gets the ump when we sell them because they never made it. We need some, young players, are going to come in, and we've got to start replicating the model of other clubs. Look at what Brighton have just done. Jesus Christ, it's unbelievable what they've done since they've been promoted to the Premier League. And, now they're in Europe next year. And they're going to lose their midfield this summer, but I guarantee they won't suffer because they've just got this constant ability to just find players and replace them.
Yeah, in the show I talked about Dan Ashworth, who was their technical director, who was also technical director for the FA, and he set that system up, and talked about what a technical director does, and it's very much like it's virtually running the whole club. The training grounds, overseeing, the youth academy, the senior squad, etc., like quite kind of a lot of responsibility. And then what they do is, I'm sure I'm teaching to the I know all this, mate, but he sets up the platform where it doesn't matter what manager I think what we're going to do is we're going to do what Brighton have done. It's going to take us a bit of time, so let's not think it's going to happen overnight, but where it doesn't matter what manager comes in, it will go from manager to head coach, after Moyes. And it doesn't matter what manager comes in, what coach comes in, there'll be that continuity. And I think that's where Steidten is going to sort of.
This is where
change.
Usually when someone like this comes in, this is where a club then starts to form an identity, which is something that we've lost. We definitely kind of lost that. The West Ham way is always famously spoken about, isn't it? And we've kind of lost that identity. And I think bringing someone like this in who's going to kind of manage and oversee a lot of the club. What it suggests to me as well is the higher ups are going to take more of a step back. Sullivan's, he's always been quite heavily involved, but he's not getting any younger. And then Krasinski's a bit of a silent partner anyway. You don't never hear from him, do you?
Not in it for the football inside,
So maybe this is kind of their way of saying, like, let's put someone in charge of it all to kind of see the whole thing. And, this is going to be our way of trying to get an identity. But, coming back to your question, what would he prefer? 70 million, 120 million? I don't really think it matters to someone who's got an eye for a player. If he thinks he can find someone and they're going to make the club better, then, then I'm all for it. I think the biggest issue we've got with Declan Rice is this summer is when we're going to get the most money possible. The danger that we've got is if he doesn't go this summer, then we're going to halve the value next year.
Is that a bad thing though, Dan? Keep him for another season and get 50, 60 million for him.
For us, season. It's not. I think on the pitch, it's not. But you've got to look at the big picture sometimes. And we've never been the most cash rich club. I think with the amount of players we need, because it isn't just going to be, trying to find someone to replace Declan Rice. There's other needs within the squad that we need to fill. I think selling him this summer makes the most sense. If he doesn't go this summer, what I would like to see is a situation similar to Jack Grealish. Now, Jack Grealish obviously had all those offers that summer. They didn't, but no one bid the money they wanted. So what Jack Grealish did is he shook their hand and signed a contract, an extension with a minimum fee release clause in. So then the following summer he could go.
Yeah.
And if Declan really cares about the club, if he doesn't go this summer, I'd like to see something similar like that happen. Where he just signs a 1 year extension. Just sign that 1 year extension, add a minimum fee release clause in. And then if it's triggered, then you have no choice, and then he goes.
This is an interesting thing, Dan, because last season, West Ham United, it's well known now. West Ham offered him a new contract, 200 grand a week, but over 8 years. And my understanding is that the Rice, Sean Rice, his agent, his dad, didn't come back to negotiate that. Didn't come back and go, well, give us 200 grand a year and 3 years or 2 years, etc. Apparently, they just rejected it, and that was that. And there's talk about, much what you're saying now, get him on a new contract, etc., put in this clause, and then it all bodes well. Another season at West Ham.
I'd honestly still, he's got 2 years, at least got 2 years left on his contract. I would literally just go in and say, look, we just want to extend it by a year, 200 grand a week, we'll stick £110 million release clause in it. Then next summer, if anyone triggers that clause, then you can do what you want. And then if anyone triggers that clause within those 3 years, you can go. But just sign with us just to protect the fee. If you really care about the club, we just want to protect the fee, because you're basically, we're kind of putting the club's future in your hands. And if he really cares, he would sign that contract.
Yeah.
If he rejects it, then I think we can all assume that it's not that he's down in tools, because he's never done that. He's never come out and screamed, I want to leave. But if he kind of rejects that, then you kind of get the feeling it's just that he wants out of West Ham rather than.
Yeah. And why though? I mean, we've heard an awful lot of stuff over the last season, and even now, about sort of Warburton left, and he said a few things about, he fell short of saying he fell out with Moyes, but he fell out with Moyes over tactics and stuff like that. And you hear about all these things that are going on, but is that one reason why maybe Rice wants to leave?
I think Rice's head gets turned every time he goes off to England.
Yeah.
Look, you've got to put yourself in the player's shoes sometimes, but you're the only West Ham player in the England squad, and then you're playing with all these other lads who play for bigger clubs, and you see how good they are, and you're like, I could be playing with them week in, week out. There's no secret. He's really good friends with Foden, and him and Saka really get on. So you can see why he would want to go to potentially Arsenal and go and play with those lads. But I still think that if City bid the money, I think they put a big enough contract on the table. He's head could be turned.
And this is it. It's not been tested. They've got
a big contingent of English players in Man City. People don't seem to think about that, but they've got a lot of the England internationals play there, and a lot of them are up in Manchester as well. Playing for United as well. So that's true. Here's an interesting comment. People, by the way, if you want to ask, please ask a question, because it's really difficult to put all your comments, and I do try my best. But if you actually want to ask a specific question, put a capital Q. And then ask the question, because I'm trying to put all the comments up, trying to listen to Dan at the same time. And I'll tell you, it ain't easy. But here's a comment that just 2 billion owners, we shouldn't need to sell anyone to buy players. Owners just pure stingy, etc., etc. Get your wallets out. Now, we keep hearing about financial fair play, and people keep saying it's an excuse, but it isn't, is it? Because financial fair play. Sorry, mate. Especially once you're in Europe. It's even worse.
Exactly that.
It's even worse.
Financial fair play when you're in Europe is very, very different to financial fair play in the Premier League. We're a little bit more...
Because not only do you have to meet the FA's FFP, you have to meet UEFA's. And I think UEFA's is very, very different. You have to prove that you're making X amount of money. It's completely different. So there's two different FFPs that you basically have to abide by.
And this is the catch.
Yeah.
You know, we're regulars in Europe now, 3 years in a row. We've got to abide by it. We've got no choice. It's all right. It makes me smile because we're fucking regulars in Europe. But we've got no choice. So I get what you're saying, Sean. But you know, we spent heavily last season, didn't we? We invested a lot of money.
You have to understand as well is you have to use the term billionaire loosely with our owners as well, because a lot of their money is tied up in assets. It's not so much cash.
It's not bank accounts rolling in gold. So where does it go from here? I mean, you know, we're in a situation now where the last thing we want is for this to become protracted. Look, everyone's on holiday. Rice is on holiday. He only just went at the beginning of last week after the last England game. We know Sullivan is lording it on some yacht or whatever he's doing with his bird, you know, so he's away on holiday. Everyone's on holiday. So what are we expecting? I saw someone make a comment that apparently Man City are going to put a bid in tonight. How do you? It can
still be done. It can still be done though. You look at Tonali to Newcastle. They flew him to Romania to get the medical done. They flew him for his holiday to Romania to get the medical done. If you really
want the player, you'll go all out, won't you?
You get it done.
You get it done, don't you? What do you think is going to happen? I mean, you know, what happens here? Let's go with a scenario. We've got 3 scenarios. Only Arsenal, another team comes in, or no one offers. So let's start with only Arsenal. You kind of talked about it quite a bit. What they got to do is pretty simple, isn't it?
Yeah, instead of whinging, their fan base has done nothing but whinge. I'm going to get pelters for it if there's any Arsenal fans watching, but they've done nothing but whinge. The word won't come to me, but it's just that top 6, you know, they think they're superior to everybody else, don't they? And like they can get everyone on the cheap. And it's not just us, you know, they're saying the same about Caicedo at bloody Brighton and whatnot as well, because they've been priced out of him by the looks of things. But, you know, if you ain't got the money, then just pull out. It's as simple as that. If you can't afford it, pull out. But if you have and you're desperate, then just structure a deal to what we want and pay the bloody money. And then he can go there. See, for me personally, still, I couldn't give a shit where he goes, personally. My opinion is, I don't think the move to Arsenal is as ambitious. I think it's a bit safe and a sideways step. But I don't care where he goes. If we get 110, 120 million for him, I couldn't give a shit. I'm rubbing my hands together and hoping that money gets spent properly, because our team isn't getting any younger. Like we've both said, we're going into our 3rd year of European football, and we need to replace not only him, but a few other players. And we need the money to do it.
Yeah.
And if Declan Rice doesn't want to play for us, because as much as everyone wants to laud him because he's captain, he's just lifted a trophy. Essentially, this is only happening because he's said he wants to play for a bigger club. So if he don't want to play for us, then we have to move him on. And just, you know, thanks for your service. Thanks for the 6 years. It was amazing. See you later. I don't get attached to footballers anymore, because
you can't, can you?
There are no one-man club players anymore. They just don't exist.
Well, this is the other thing. Yeah, this is the other thing I've been saying. We've got to stop thinking in that. And I don't mean that in a disrespectful way, but we've got to stop thinking in that mentality.
Yeah.
You know, if we lose a player like this, you know, it's funny. I can't remember who it was that said it. That there are clubs who go, if we sell a player, it's not a problem. Look at you mentioned Brighton. Look, Brighton will sell someone. They'll bring someone in, sell him. Who's that young Asian player that they brought in last season, who was just superb. I can't remember his name. Played on the left side. Gave Ben Johnson torrid time when we got smashed 4-0. And he's come out of the blue for some, God knows, a few £1 million. I bet you'll see next season.
Their maddest one was they sold Cucurella to Chelsea for 65 million. They replaced him with your Stupian for 13 million, and he was the best left back in the league. That is mad. It's just, where do they find them? But they're just, there's some clubs that they can sell and you don't even notice. You don't even.
But this is where we need to be, isn't it? So, you know, we shouldn't be, especially with Steiden coming in. You know, we've got to be optimistic, haven't we? Steiden comes in, he's just given the Declan money, and he goes, go out in there and buy me 4 new players. If there's anyone that's going to be able to do it, it's going to be someone like him, and then we will start being able to behave like. I mean, isn't it weird aspiring to be a Brighton? when we should be aspiring to be a, like I don't know, one of the so-called top 6. But kind of that's where we're going, isn't it? We're aspiring to become what Brighton are or what Brentford are. And I know people are going to hate that, but it's the reality is that, isn't it? By bringing in
they're just
Steidon.
well-run clubs, aren't they? They're just
Yeah.
very well-run clubs. They never buy someone and sell them at a loss. They always make so much money on the players that they sell. So that's where we got to get to. Maybe Declan is going to be potentially the first player that ends up that way. But it's just that's how I
So
feel
we
about it, mate.
shouldn't worry about selling our best players, because we should have a mechanism, a system to actually, replace them. So that's the one scenario. It's the obvious one. Arsenal, if they want him, they got to stump up. Next scenario, another club comes in, Man City. Like you said, I mean, that will, Sully will be wetting his pants, won't he?
If Arsenal bid at say like 100 million, and then City come in and drop like 110, 120 million, however they structure it, Arsenal will instantly just go, okay, it's yours. They won't fight Man City. Financially, they just can't. It's not possible.
Yeah,
they can't compete.
What's the interesting thing is, will Declan go? Will Declan's entourage say yes to Man City? I mean, we talked about it earlier. If Real Madrid come in, you're not going to go, it's a little bit far for me.
See, it's such a big move. It should always be the player that's making these decisions. I hate it when they've got their agents and family in their ear always telling them what to do, because we've seen it in the past where players have listened to agents and it's all gone, Pete Tong. And it's their career. You only get one of them. Do you know what I mean? And they're short. A lot of players' careers ain't very long, So it's got to be down to him. He can't. When it gets to that point where he's got to make these decisions, he's got to go into a room and decide what's best for him, in my opinion. Because this move is massive. Because this move for him, it could this could make him a world beater, world class, really take him on to the next level. Or it could just be a really unsuccessful period at a slightly bigger club, and then he drops down and moves.
How much of a shame would that be?
It'd be awful, because he really is.
Because you could have Guardiola. No disrespect to Arteta, he's good with his players, etc. Guardiola can turn him into one of the best European midfielders to one of the best world midfielders in the world, couldn't he? He could actually become an absolute massive icon, couldn't he? Under Guardiola. Okay, so that's 2 scenarios. And then the third scenario, of course, he stays. How would you feel if he stayed?
I wouldn't have any problems. What I would like to see happen is what I've already said, though. Sign a 1-year extension with a clause in it. That's what I would like. Just as we tried, but this is the next best thing. This just protects you, protects the fee, protects the club. At the end of the day, no player is bigger than the club. And the club, it should always be the thing that's put first. And that's, I think, what the club would have to do. And if he rejects that...
preference be, mate? I know when it comes to, like strengthening the squad, etc., etc. The one thing I'm worried about, and it kind of ties in with what Daniela's asking about, are we putting a time limit on this transfer? My understanding is we're not, but that's dangerous, isn't it? Because
very.
The one thing that we don't want to do is wait, and then feel compelled.
But we just end up like we do every transfer window, where we sign them too late, then they don't have a pre-season, and then Moyes, because Moyes is a bloody, he's so bad for it. He doesn't just throw them in. He waits and waits and waits, and then before you know it, it's bloody October, November, and they're still not playing regularly. And it's we need. See, but really, before this week's out, I would love if the Rice deal was going to happen, I'd love it to happen before this week's out. So then we can sit down and go, right, let's get this done, let's get this sorted. Because we probably need 2 midfielders. I think we need a left winger. We need a striker, because I'd like to see Antonio go personally. And I think we probably need to be looking at the fullback areas. Because
or at least another centre back.
Because honestly, I love Soufal, but he just can't stay fit these days. And Ben Johnson, I don't know what's happened to him.
Yeah, apparently he's doing well with England at the moment.
I'd like to see Johnson go out on loan for a year.
Oh, Oh,
and
interesting.
bring in a right back. That's what I'd like to see.
The rumor is because it's protracted with his contract, we might sell Johnson this summer. That's the rumor. Alexandra is asking, how much influence does the family have over what happens with Declan? It seems to have a massive influence, doesn't it?
If you believe the rumours, they literally do all the talking and thinking for him. By the sounds of things.
And what he said, after the final, he said, these things don't happen. I don't get involved in them, and it's not right. I leave that to others, etc. And it's very much like, and also the story broke today where Sullivan, as I said earlier in the show, is there are no intermediaries on this. There are no other agents. Sullivan is dealing directly with Arsenal. So Arsenal are putting in the offer, and there's no middleman going to Sullivan going, oh, Arsenal are offering so they're going directly to Sully. With that, it kind of feels
I tell you
like,
what, Stel, he's going to get 120 million for him, but he's going to tell the public he only got 110. He's 110. 10 million of that's going to go missing, I tell you.
Little back pocket, little brown envelope. So, the family do seem to have an awful lot of I don't know, a lot to say. Here's another question, Thunder and Joy. If Mason goes to United, he will have his best mate in Manchester with him.
Yeah, but I don't think Mount's going to go. They want too much for him.
Yeah.
United can't get anything done until whatever happens with that club is sorted.
Shouldn't we be loaning Mason Mount to West Ham?
Oh, mate, honestly. Do you know what? He ain't a bad player. It just didn't happen for him last year. He ain't a bad player. He's a good footballer. He ain't worth 60 million quid though, 1 year on his contract, is he? That's insane.
No, it is a bit insane, isn't it? Here's another question. Anthony Laurie, good evening, mate. Sheikh Jazim pulled out of Bayern Man United, turning his attention to West Ham. We're going a little bit. That's all right, actually. The questions are coming, so let's answer that. What do you think of?
That was a rumor, wasn't it? That was a rumor that apparently he was interested.
Apparently so. I mean, okay, let's put it back onto the Declan Rice thing. If Sheikh Yazim is really, really interested in West Ham United and he puts a bid in for West Ham, first of all, will the club sell? But we keep hearing that Sullivan doesn't want to sell. We keep hearing that the Gold family has still got a couple of years.
But this geezer's got infinite wealth.
He's going to go, here's £1 billion in cash. You're not turning that down, are you? We know that Kretinsky, who's in for the money, he'll probably go, of course you're going to fucking buy us, mate. Hurry up. He'd take it, wouldn't he? Because that's an investment. Or maybe Yazim buys a portion of West Ham, not necessarily a complete buyout. Maybe he buys a portion. Does that then make Declan Rice go,
well,
I might as well hang around?
The club's different, isn't it? Look at Newcastle. Mate. Since they've got their new owners, like what it does as well for the fan base, because you're just looking at it like we've got no financial worries anymore. And you're looking at the players they're signing.
But we still got to abide by financial fair play and show that we,
Yeah, but look at Chelsea. They've got ways, mate. They know how to offset it.
This
stuff that's going on at Chelsea is so dodgy. So like the company that Bowley owns is run by the Arab state, and so they're buying them all up, and they're all going out to Saudi to play in that league. And they're about to buy their 5th Chelsea player. And they're buying them all at a profit for Chelsea. He's so dodgy. But Chelsea are just good at this. They're good at finding loopholes. They did it with the contracts in January, and now they've done it with the transfer window.
Let's not be cynical, but you're absolutely right. Jonathan, I didn't understand your question. Does the sale of Tonel give the funds needed for Scamacca?
If he's going to... they're skint. AC Milan are skint. That's why they've sold him. They kind of got no choice but to offload a few players.
So we're not loaning. If Scamacca, from what I understand, if an offer of 30 odd million is made for Scamacca, he's gone.
I find this so odd still.
Go on.
Because when he was fit, he was good.
Yeah.
He actually had a very injury impacted season.
Yeah.
And I think if you'd have kept him fit, I do think that he would have been all right. The biggest issue with Skamaka is he's not got the pace, and he ain't going to run the channels. But surely the club knew this when they signed him.
Well, they must have done. Otherwise, what's going on with the scouting system?
You know, Skamaka is the perfect. I actually think Skamaka is the perfect striker for our club, because if he can play, if he plays with his back to goal, he's got such a good first touch and a good eye for a pass.
Brings other players in.
You know, if you say you go and sign a Harvey Barnes and you've got Bowen one side, Harvey Barnes and Paqueta, and he plays them in, goals are going to come from everywhere. He's the perfect striker for us. We cannot keep bloody playing Antonio week in, week out. Jesus Christ, you know, he can't stay fit. He's off playing in the Gold Cup at the minute. What's that all about? We need him fit, you know, like.
We've got to move on, haven't we, from that? We've got to. I mean, it worries me if we start Antonio as our main striker next season. I think that's a massive.
I got pelters off of a couple of people the other day for suggesting we sell him. Someone was like, "Yeah, we scored 14 goals in all competitions." Like, yeah, but 5 of them were in the Premier League.
Yeah, I've already done the stats. I've already done the comparisons to. They're on par. Skamaka and Antonio, for the number of goals scored to the number of games played, they're equal. You know, and Antonio played something like 3 times the number of games, or double the number of games, or whatever. So, oh well.
We keep doing this just before we answer the next question. We just keep doing this with strikers where we don't give them a chance. We did it with Haller, and a lot of people might give me pelters because he seemed lazy and whatever. But Haller was similar. Like, I'm not being funny, but since Haller left, he's played in the Champions League for Ajax and Dortmund, and he's scoring goals. So he clearly isn't a bad player.
Exactly, and Skamaka will go and do the same thing, won't he?
Yeah, he'll go somewhere, like a big club as well. He ain't going to go anywhere shit. He's going to go somewhere big, and he'll score goals.
He'll score goals. Alexander, do you think Dex wants a greater challenge? That's why he prefers Arsenal over winning trophies. That would seem as a bigger achievement than winning them at City. So yeah, I talked about that earlier. You know, the talk is, Alexander, that he thinks that will be a much greater achievement if he can get Arsenal success. You know, rather than just being the small cog. What do you make of that, though, Dan? I mean,
he never should have said what he said to Yaya Toure in their interview then.
Right.
So they did. So he did that thing where he's invited to Yaya Toure's house, and Yaya Toure had this room with all the shirts on the wall, and he was talking to him because he really likes Yaya Toure. He kind of he modeled himself off of him, and he was talking to him about stuff, and he was saying that, like, and he basically turned around to him, and he was like. He said to Yaya Toure, "That's what I want. I want to win the Champions League. I want to win the league. I want to win all the big trophies." Then you can't then turn around and go, "No, this project's more exciting."
It doesn't make sense.
No footballer, even the players that are playing League Two, none of them go into football with the aspiration of getting involved in an interesting project. They all go into football to win trophies.
I know I'm laughing, but it is.
It doesn't make sense,
does it? It doesn't make sense. Dodsey, how are you, mate? I hope you're well. Hope you're enjoying your golf during the football break. How much is Sean Rice the problem? Small fish in a pond of sharks. I don't know if you know. Apparently, you know, it's Sean Rice that, you know, people are asked earlier how much does the family get involved in this, etc. And Sean Rice seems to. I did a story about a week or so ago where. I'm sure you probably know again that the way agents are dealt with in transfers, they're kind of putting a stop on the mad money that agents get, and FIFA have put in new rules, and some of them are coming into play in October, where family members no longer get money for their son being sold. And also, agents will only get, and Sean Rice is apparently Declan Rice's official agent. They'll only get a percentage of the fee or the salary that they're going to get. So they're limiting how much agents can earn. Now, apparently, it's all going to go to court, and agencies are going to, you know, are kicking up over it, etc. But you mentioned earlier, this is the window at the moment that we can get the most money for Declan Rice. You know, it won't happen again unless, as you said, if he signs a new contract, a slightly extended contract, puts in the clause and all that sort of stuff. So as it stands, Sean Rice will get a substantial amount of money before the new FIFA rules kick in on
Yeah.
agency fees. Do you think Sean Rice is the problem? Do you think maybe, I don't want to say he's being misguided or mismanaged, because after all, he's his dad. He's going to want the best for his son, isn't he?
Yeah.
But does the money come into it, or is that not an
Oh,
issue?
mate, we all know what people are like when there's money involved. Come on, everyone wants to. Look, he's going to want the best for his son, but if he can get a slice of the pie, he's going to go for it, isn't he? Let's be honest.
Yeah.
But I'm glad these regulations are coming. None of this stupid stuff. Like, do you remember when Ronaldo's gifted his agent a Greek island when he got him the move to Real Madrid? Yeah, when he got him the move to Real Madrid, he gifted him a Greek island, private island.
Oh my God, I didn't know that.
Yeah, insane. You should read about it, mate. It's mad how much money that geezer made out of Ronaldo.
Rick Dodsley, I think, I don't know. It seems to me that a lot of players have their parents, have their family members involved in their transfers. Sometimes it's a good thing. Sometimes I'm not so sure, because is he in the best position to be able to advise Declan Rice? I don't know. With the new FIFA rules, you've got to go through, you've got to do exams and all that, to continue being an agent, so I don't know. It's a good question, though. Richard, good evening, mate. I hope you're well. Do you think Southgate will advise Declan Rice to go to Man City if he wants to captain England?
No, I don't think Southgate gets involved in any of that stuff.
Yeah,
Southgate would want him. Southgate will want him to stay in England, because, as we've seen, Southgate is as an allergy to looking at players outside of England. Bloody Tomori is, one of the best centre backs that we could probably have at the minute, playing in Italy week in, week out. Tammy Abraham, before he got the ACL, he's doing great stuff. Even Chris Smalling revitalised his career, but none of them get a look in. But yet, Harry Maguire's there every fucking week, and he's been shit for 2 years. Unbelievable.
Good evening, Hammerette. Would you take 70 million and Balogun?
No, you're rating Balogun at 50 million. 30,
so the answer's easy.
30, no. My ideal deal would be 80 million plus Palmer and Harwood Bellis at City. They're two young players that Pep really, really likes, but it's getting to a point in their careers where they both want to play first team football. I think Palmer especially is good enough. Like, when I see him play, I always look at him out on that left wing and I just think he's mustard. Yeah. And Harwood Bellis would just bring the average age of our centre backs down. And I think he would just
by about 50 years.
Yeah, and he would just be class. I actually think that would be the ideal
That's transfer. A really good move. That's a really good call. But that's all dependent on whether
or not he wants them to go.
He wants to go to Man City or not. Peter, if Arabs buy the club, will our new song be... And I thought for a minute that was a serious question. Schmeigel, would you sign Ibrahim Sangare? We talked about him before. I'm sure I did to show last.
We were talking on Twitter a little bit as well, because I remember saying, and you said, "Oh, but he signed a new deal." But
that's right.
As we know, it don't mean anything in football if the money's right. He has said, hasn't he, this summer that he wants to leave.
Yeah, he has. So that's all dependent on if we sell Rice, but it's also dependent on what happens with what Steidten is going to be. Okay, let me ask you a quick question, because going off Rice for a moment. Steidten comes in. Moyes has got a year left on his contract. Steidten is clearly the future, because not only will Steidten be looking at player purchases, but as we talked about earlier, a technical director gets involved in an awful lot of other stuff. We've got a vacancy in the women's team because Konchesky's left. We've got a vacancy for first team coach now that Warburton's left. Are we kind of waiting for Steidten to come in and start saying, here's a recommendation for this post, here's a recommendation for that post, as well as recommending players? How is he going to work? Because I think working alongside Mark Noble will be fine, because I think Noble will just be like a sponge and really sort of relish working with someone.
And I think the great thing having someone like Mark Noble is he'll be able to teach this fella all about what West Ham is and what to expect.
and also get him an insight into the academy. We've got some fantastic young players there. So I guess the elephant in the room is going to work well with the board. He's going to work well with Mark Noble. You know where this is going.
I don't think Moyes makes it past October.
Some other people have been saying that.
I can't see our style of play changing drastically like it needs to. People are not going to like this, but we might have won that cup final, but we didn't play well. And
no, we didn't.
It wasn't the easiest game. I know, obviously, you were there still. So it's always a very different viewing perspective when you watch a game, live than watch it on the TV. It was hard to watch. It was, I think a lot of it was nerves and the fact that, it's a massive game for the club and whatnot, but it was hard watch, and it was an hard watch all season.
Yeah.
And I don't know if we can go into another year playing like this and getting away with it, because I just don't think we will, especially once you lose someone like Declan Rice.
I'm smiling, but I shouldn't be smiling because I agree with you. I mean, when it comes to the final, I think I in the first half, I think the Italians did a job on us. They nullified us. They were, they did their dirty little tricks. It really put us off, and it did put us on edge. And it was a horrible game to watch. I'll never forget the first half. I think a lot of fans were quite frustrated in what they were watching. We waited so long to get to a final, and then it just served up 45 minutes of really niggly, turgid football. The Italians going down, holding their heads every 30 seconds, but it put us off our stride. We couldn't get two passes together. I think we improved in the second half, but we picked up our pace, but the Italians picked up their pace as well. It was a much better second half than it was the first half. But you're right. We didn't.
We just can't, and I just don't think Moyes survives going into another season playing his favourites.
So when Sullivan comes in, then because we're told.
I can tell you exactly what's going to happen.
Go on.
I can tell you exactly what's going to happen. Moyes doesn't make it past October, and Xabi Alonso gets appointed within a week.
Well, Xabi Alonso's been touted as the next Real Madrid manager.
Well, him and Staten are very good friends, and Staten got him the job, and they work really well together.
Yeah,
and I genuinely think that if Moyes doesn't make it past a particular point, I genuinely think Xabi Alonso will be manager within a couple of days of Moyes leaving.
He's got a year left on his contract at.
So the compensation ain't going to be much. Honestly,
and if I just pocketed 110 million for Rice, you could have a few quid left over, aren't you?
I can see it happening. I can see it happening, and there's a few positions in the coaching team there. I think he'll fill them easily. Honestly, I can just because, like you've already said, he'll oversee much more than just who joins the football club.
Yeah,
he oversees everything.
That is the role of a technical director. It isn't just about. It's not a glorified scout. This is about the whole structure of the football team.
He'll be in charge of putting a scouting team together.
Yeah.
We might actually eventually get a bloody scouting network like the rest of these clubs.
Well, we kind of have, haven't we? Under Newman or...
Yeah, but it's mad. Like Southampton, for instance, we talked about this before. I think we had like 2 scouts, and Southampton had like 14 scouts that were out abroad, and then they had like 3 scouts in the country.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And Southampton are meant to be were on a similar level to us. I know they've been relegated now, but like that's how a scouting network is. You have people all over the world.
I was being facetious, but I agree. So for the small amount of time that they might be working together, Steiden and Moyes, how do you think that'll go? It won't. It isn't, is it? It's not going to work. I remember last season when Moyes was talking about Noble, calling him what did he call him? He didn't call him the apprentice, but something to that effect, like he's a novice or whatever. Quite dismissive of.
It did feel like a job for the boys, though, didn't it?
It was, wasn't it? With the greatest of respect to Mark Noble, we love him, but so is he going to be as dismissive? He can't be as dismissive with someone as experienced as Steiden. He's got to he's got to be looking to work with him, hasn't he? Otherwise, it will be curtains for Moyes.
You would hope.
Yeah.
But Jesus, what is winning a cup going to have done to Moyes' ego?
Oh dear. Steiden comes in and he goes, he'll sit with Moyes and go, right, what positions do we need filling? And Moyes will go,
I tell you what I
central
do worry
midfield.
about. What I do worry about is them clashing heads over transfers.
Well, this is exactly where I was going to get to. So Moyes will say to him, I need a centre back, I need a central midfielder, I need a striker. And Steiden will go, this player, this player, this player, because he works on data-driven analysis, doesn't he? And he'll go, for the type of player you want, in the position that you want, here's the best player at this moment in time.
And Moyes will go, yeah, but before we carry on, is he 6'6"? That's all he cares about. He's just got to be a unit.
And that leads me to the next question. Would you sign Jonathan David? I've seen we're being linked with him. Doesn't have a huge buyout clause either. We've been linked with him for the last couple of seasons.
Yeah, haven't we?
Yeah. Decent player. Would he do well? I think he'll be a kind of player that might fit Moyes' system.
Well, the year we were linked with him, I'd heard a lot about him. I didn't see much. To be fair, I didn't pay too much attention to football last season. I didn't make it over West Ham all that much. I just had so much going on. But I don't know. I genuinely don't know. Is he coming off the back of a good season? If he is, then
he's come off the back of a couple of good seasons. Canadian international as well. I don't know.
We need options up front. I know that much.
Well, we need an option other than Antonio.
Yeah,
Good evening, Kent. I hope you're well, mate. I believe Marcus Thuram is a massive miss for us if Moyes stays. He can play the Antonio role, yet he's going to Milan on a free. But would he? Great name to throw out. But would he be interested at West Ham, especially when you got Milan?
Yeah, do you know what I mean? They're going to be their Champions League football, I believe, next year.
So, Sharky, no is the answer to that question, mate. Straight away.
He's already gone anyway, isn't he?
He's gone. He's gone for.
He's already gone.
He's there with Besiktas or however you pronounce them. I thought they were playing. I thought they qualified for Champions League, but I think someone said Europa League or Europa Conference League next season. But he's playing European football. You never know. Europa League, we might bump into him, might get drawn against them, and
Lovely.
That would be great, wouldn't it?
Bowen against him all night. Yes.
Question from Matt. Who does deserve to reach 10 years for the club out of Cressy or Oggy? I think you're talking about getting a...
I'd love to see Cress get one.
Yeah.
I would.
I think he deserves it. And
I was made up for it. I thought he was one of them players I was made up for when we won the trophy. You really see what it meant to him and what the club means to him, And do you know what? I know that's a position we really do need to look at, but I thought he was probably one of our best players last season. When he was called upon, when he had to come in and kind of do the job, he's lost that pace going forward and whatnot. But I felt like he kind of adapted his game a little bit.
He had a bit of a sort of a bit of a purple patch, didn't he?
But then it's mad, what Emerson can offer when you give him a chance. He was our best player in the final.
He was superb. He was absolutely.
Other than the mistake for the goal, he got out jumped for the goal. But other than that, he didn't put a foot wrong.
Yeah. And Oggy, I've always said that Ogbonna, I mean, if you remember, I always had arguments about who was the best centre back. And I've always said Ogbonna was one of our best centre backs. I mean, he'll be. I think the 1 year's been extended.
I think that's smart, personally, because if you don't get someone in, then he's he's not going to play week in, week out. But he's a seasoned head, isn't he? And he is consistent. Rarely puts a foot wrong, even in this latter stage of his career. He's always good for us.
Yeah, agreed. Next question, Jonathan. I know you said about Sean Rice, but why would stop the bidding war? It would be in his interest to get as much as possible. Yeah, I don't think anyone will want to stop a bidding war. I think that's what
this is where I think it's. But I think this is where it's dangerous when family are involved. Because because the way you've got to look at it is, if Rice up sticks and moves to Manchester, you don't know what the family unit's like. They might all feel like they've got to do the same, and maybe they don't want to.
Good point.
We have this with Harry Kane. His brother's his agent.
Okay.
And there's no surprise that Harry Kane keeps bottling it and signing these contract extensions and staying at Spurs. And I think a lot of it is when the family's involved.
There's that sort of there's that emotional pull, isn't there?
Yeah.
Alexander, do you think Deck would love to stay at West Ham but feels he needs to leave to achieve his dreams? And would your answer depend on where he went?
Let me just say one thing before you answer, Still.
Go on.
I actually think that Sullivan, after we won the cup, Sullivan just see pound signs and Sullivan fucked it for us. If Sullivan didn't come out less than 24 hours later trying to sell him on TalkSport, I actually think Deck might have sat down and signed an extension. I genuinely think
Seriously.
I was watching Deck when we won, and he was soaking it up and he was loving it, and you could see him on the bus and the celebrations, and you could just see the club does mean something to him. And I think had Sullivan maybe kept stum, he might have signed an extension. But Sullivan, however you care about him, Sullivan's got to do what's best for the club. 120 million pounds what's best for the club. So that's why he did it.
Oh, okay. So there's a question we haven't asked. We hear that maybe Sean Rice wants to sell Declan Rice because get good money for them as an agent, etc. Declan Rice might want to go because of his career, etc. Does West Ham United want to sell Declan Rice, or going back to the what we started off with, Sullivan has made it clear it's 120 million, however that's made up, or nothing. Now, would you think that Sullivan really means that by saying, if we don't get the money for Declan Rice, I'm happy to keep him, especially with what you just said about, money's got, almost, well, or not almost, try to start selling him from the day after we won the cup. Would Sullivan as an owner be happy to keep Rice for another year, or would they try and get him to sign a new contract?
I think he'd be happy if he stayed, but I just think, everyone's got their opinion on the board and Sullivan in particular, but you don't make all that money being shit at business. And what Sullivan is doing at the minute is he just knows that his prize asset is worth the most he's going to be worth on his current deal. And Sullivan's just going to look at it and go, 120 million is better than 60 million next year.
Yeah.
We can do more with this now than we can do with that then.
Especially by getting Steiden in as well.
Yeah, and the trouble you've got as well is Rice could stay one more year, but Rice doesn't guarantee you success. He's one player. Whereas if you sell Rice and you get three players through the door, you might have a better chance. And we've got to, we as a football club and as a fan base, we've got to start becoming comfortable with the idea of Rice leaving, because every football club moves on. We've seen it, not just with West Ham, but every football club does this, where they sell a player and they've got to move on.
You mentioned Harry Kane just now with Spurs. Imagine what they might have been able to do if they'd sold him and got someone different in, something different.
And they would have got ridiculous money as well. When he was kind of at his selling peak. We were talking about 150 million pounds. So much money. What they could have done with that,
Yeah. Do you think the gentleman's agreement saying he can leave is dependent on us getting the fee, and Deck knows and agreed to that? I think very, very definitely.
Deck must know that there's a fee in mind, because if not, then I think that he might have kicked off with his bids being rejected.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whether it be publicly or behind the scenes, I think he would have said something, and then the next bid would have just been accepted, whatever the value. He must know that there's a price in mind.
Yeah. Anthony asking tongue in cheek, do you want Harry Redknapp to take over the women's team? No. Moisaurus, thank you, mate. Much appreciated. I don't know what SEKs are, but thank you so much for it. Anyway, and YouTube will take their fair share of that, about 49 of it. But no, seriously, thank you. Paul, can the new guy persuade Scamac to stay? I hope so. Good question. Steiden is very, very well respected, isn't he? In footballing circles. So it's quite possible. My light's gone off again. And I had that. There you go. He's very well respected. So is it possible that he might be able to get someone like Scamacca to stay, or is Scamacca? I want to say a lost cause, but
do you reckon it becomes
his eyes set on leaving?
Do you reckon it becomes an issue if the new guy comes in and then he kind of looks at the team and he looks at the numbers and he goes like, this guy's talented, this guy is, but maybe this guy, we could make a bit of money, lost cause, and he goes to Moyes with that, and Moyes goes, don't agree. Do you think that becomes a problem? Because at the end of the day, he's a talent scout. Like he knows he's clearly knows a good footballer when he sees one. Look at his track
it becomes
record.
a massive problem, to be honest with you. Yeah, I think this is why I'm worried about. Someone mentioned apparently Moyes wanted Steiden. I think if that is true, then great. But
the big issue is obviously Scamacca. You could argue doesn't fit Moyes' style of play, but Moyes is just so one-dimensional. You look at the beginning of the season, he tried something different, it didn't work. Let's just go back to the tried and tested rather than trying to evolve this new style. And that's why I was saying to you earlier about, I worry about Moyes lasting past October, because if you go in with this, it's hard to watch, brand of football, it's not going to end well for him, especially if this new guy comes in and starts bringing in more technical, gifted players.
Well, this is the interesting thing. Like a lot of people said, Moyes should have gone out on a high. He won his first.
I think
trophy.
he should. I think he should have.
Yeah,
I think he should have. Because the trouble he's got now is he going into a new season, he could cock it up within the first few months, and then he gets the sack, and everyone forgets that he won a trophy.
Yeah. James asks, where are we at with signing Gyökeres from Coventry? He had 2 good seasons. This is the problem with transfer rumours. We don't even know if that rumour is even true, do we?
No.
I think this is that.
I'm not being funny. Look at the Declan Rice thing, right? You look at Fabrizio Romano and the Arsenal fan sites. They've literally been regurgitating the same thing for about 2 weeks. A bid's going to be made. A transfer offer's being negotiated. Rice wants Arsenal. Man City. It's literally the same stuff over and over, which is why we've heard about this lad for the last year, 18 months, potentially coming to West Ham. Me and you do it all the time still when it gets to this time of year, where we start counting the players that we've been linked with. The amount of players that have popped up that we got linked with in summer last year in January, they're all coming out the woodworks because
it's regurgitated.
We ain't even got any money to spend at the minute.
Garino has said City have made a bid 80 million plus 10 in add-ons. I don't know. Is that been put out anywhere, Garino? Let me know where you saw that, because I know someone said earlier on in the show that apparently City are putting in a bid tonight, so maybe that'll be
rejected.
But
if Sullivan's adamant, then that'll be rejected.
Yeah. I'm trying to find more questions, so do forgive me if I've missed some, and do forgive me if I've missed some of your comments as well. Matt, Yuri Tuleman went to Villa for a free. Did we miss out? I like him.
I don't think we did.
Oh, you don't like him?
I like him, but under Moyes, I don't think he'd work well. He doesn't track back. He's terrible. He's terrible at tracking back.
This is the nub, isn't it? A lot of people have been saying it. With Moyes, we're not going to progress no matter what's happened, winning a trophy, etc., etc. Do you want to see him go, mate?
Like I said, I would have rather he hung it up after he won the trophy, because then he would have gone out. He would have gone out with good grace, wouldn't he? He would have been remembered fondly. But if he goes into a new season, and we've all seen the fixture list, the first 6 games ain't easy.
No,
and what I worry about now is that he's going to go into a new season. It ain't going to go well for him, and then he's going to get the sack, or he's going to have an hard first couple of months, and the fan base are like booing, and it's Moyes out and all that again. That's what I worry about, because things are forgotten so quickly. Winning that trophy, mate, people forget about it like that if they shits the fan.
Daniela, do you think Arsenal thought we would lose the final and were hoping to come in with a cheap offer? That way they said they're going to put in an offer on the day after the final, but it took them over a week. Did that throw Arsenal off course? I don't know. I think Arsenal...
Maybe.
I mean, if we didn't win the trophy, would Arsenal continue with their low ball bids? Or does it matter? It's the player, isn't it?
If Sullivan's got the price in mind, whether we win the trophy or not, it's up to Sullivan by the sounds of things.
Yeah. Garino said that the reports come from David Ornstein.
He's usually pretty reliable.
Evening Standard, James has said Man City have tabled a bid 80 million. No point.
No,
it's going to be turned down. But what that does do, the bidding war has started.
Yeah, Arsenal now know they've got to up it.
Yeah, the bidding war has started. Yeah. Schmeigel, what do you think about the goalkeeper situation? I think we could do with another keeper
Yeah.
as Fabianski is aging.
I
You and
don't rate
talked about this a
Areola.
lot.
I don't rate Areola. I get pelters for it all the
You
time.
don't rate him.
No, I don't. I think he's very average.
Oh,
Very
mate, I
average.
don't
I
agree
think
with
he's.
you.
I think he's. I think his distribution's better,
Uh-huh.
and I think that. I think his distribution's better, and I think he commands his 6-yard area a little better than Fabianski, but his
Yeah.
positioning is awful, and he lets
Right.
in very easy goals. Very easy
Then
goals.
he pulls off some fantastic
He,
saves as
he's,
well.
yeah, he does. Every now and then he'll pull off a save. He is the Antonio of goalkeepers.
Oh no,
No, because he
no.
does stuff that, like, you look at it and you go, how's he done that? And then the next thing, someone will take a pop shot from 25 yards and it creeps in, and it's like you should have covered that.
I'm not having that.
No, he's a strange. For me, he's a strange keeper.
Do you
I
not
don't know.
think if
I don't know
he's
if it's
consistently,
yeah.
if he's given a consistent run in the
That's what I was just
team,
going to say. Maybe
yeah.
if he played regularly, it might be different.
Yeah.
But I haven't seen anything to suggest he should be number one.
I think
kind of said it to
I've
my
still got in my memory the save he made in the game against Seville at home. When if they'd scored that, they would have beaten us.
yeah.
And he pulled off the striker that we were after, from
The
him.
trouble is with goalkeepers, it's never a position that as you know, still, I just love football. I watch football from all over the world, and I really like taking notes of players. But goalkeepers never one I look at. I'm 5'6", so goalkeepers don't interest me. You know what I mean? So I never look at. So I don't know who's good and who's not at the minute. Who would be good value for money? I don't know who would bring in. To be honest with you. So yeah, goalkeeper one. I do think we do need to bring someone in. I just don't know if Areola's the answer yet. But like you say, if he got a good run of games, who knows?
Matt asked, the Facebook agents are saying Moyes will go for Lingard again. It's a rumour or just nonsense. Do you think Moyes will waste his time with him again? I think he would.
I wouldn't be surprised.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Free transfer.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
Victor, I really like Alex Scott of Bristol City, who we've been linked to, but gets us a free role in midfield for City. He won't under Moyes. Another story, isn't it? I mean, £25 million for a 19-year-old. Moyes ain't going out to buy him, is he?
The issue is what Victor says, though. He has a free role at Bristol City, so he kind of floats. Bit of a roaming playmaker, really, but he won't get that under Moyes. Moyes, I've said this to you before, still. The last game I was at, that we were both at, and we were standing there watching, and I said to you, he cares more about shape than he does anything else.
Yeah.
It's all about,
said that.
one bank of 4, bank of 5 Antonio. Like, it's just shape.
That's why Lanzini didn't get a lot of games, and that's why he's going as well now.
Yeah.
Someone else asked about Vlasic. Will Vlasic come in to replace Lanzini? I don't think. I think we'll do a deal with Torino. He'll go for less than we probably agreed, but we'll do a deal and he'll go. But he was another player that needs to be played centrally, a freer role. Moyes ain't doing that, is he?
I said all season. To this day, I still think Souček should have been dropped, and we should have played Rice and Fornals and Paqueta just in front. And I genuinely think our midfield would have been just so much the technical ability in there, the passing ability, the freedom they would have had. Paqueta and Fornals could be, change places, and I just would have loved to see it, but he just cares about the shape and the structure far too much. And Souček gave us barely anything all season long. And I hate slandering him because, that first season, the first 18 months, I thought he was brilliant when he played that role.
Yeah.
But he just got thrown in there week after week. And it's on Moyes as well. The way we all feel about it.
He knew what Souček was going to give him. He'd stay in that position.
But he stifled his game because his confidence went. And you could see it, and there was no consistency there. Again, he's another one. I don't think we can afford to go into next season with Souček as a starter in midfield.
Yeah,
I'd entertain offers for him.
And apparently there may be offers for him because he hasn't got the contract extension he wanted, and apparently he is unhappy with that, even though he's gone through another season. I think he's only got. I could be wrong. I think he's got 2 years left on his contract.
If you could recoup what we paid.
Yeah. Yeah,
I think
that wouldn't be a bad deal, would it?
I would just do it.
Yeah. Matt, would you take Max Aarons from Norwich to replace Johnson?
Maybe.
Decent player. Decent player. Trucking Hammer, how would you feel if Dec went to Arsenal to win trophies and they win nothing and we win the Europa League? Now, this is an interesting question
Then we
because
well,
that
then we,
could happen.
but then we can all sit back and not in a horrible way, but we can just all sit back and laugh, because it kind of comes back to what I said earlier. They're not a million miles away from us. I don't care what anyone says. I know they've just finished second in the league, right? We've just won silverware, finished 14th, was it in the end?
Yeah.
Right? We had a better season. I don't give a fuck what anyone says. We won a trophy. That means more. It qualified us for Europe again next year. We had a better season.
Yeah.
Don't care. You do not put places in the league in your trophy cabinet. You don't hang them on the wall.
This is it. And the irony, I know a lot of fans were going on about, it's important. Forgive me, my lights have gone. I know a lot of fans were going on about it's really important to finish high in the league. Really, we've got to consistently finish high. Why do we want to finish high in the league? We want to finish high in the league to get into Europe. We want to get into Europe to win a trophy.
If it meant we won a trophy every year, we had to finish bottom half of the league, I'd take it every single season.
I'd take it. So long as the football, I get about, the quality of the football.
But if you say you finish 11th, but you win the FA Cup, I'm having that season over finishing second and winning nothing.
Yeah,
you don't get a medal. You don't get a medal for finishing second in the league.
And it could work out that, we do win the Europa League and Arsenal could finish outside the top four.
Yeah. And that is a very distinct possibility as well, because, like I said earlier, those clubs that had slight off seasons last year, they're not going to have. They're not having that. They're not having that.
Yeah. Juha, with the same team and coach, where will West Ham finish next season? You kind of alluded to it already.
I don't think he sees out the season, so. But I don't think we. I don't think we finish top half. I don't think we finish top half if Moyes stays the whole year.
And Anthony's kind of asking something similar. Another season fighting relegation or top six. I guess under Moyes, you kind of said that. Schmiegel, do you think Moyes has a huge list of names on his transfer list? Because it seems like every transfer window, he wastes time chasing after the same players you couldn't get before. It's an interesting question. That's different, Schmiegel, for me is not necessarily believing every single story that's out there, linking us to the same players all the time.
You have to remember. You have to remember as well that Moyes isn't the one that picks up the phone and puts the bid in.
Yeah,
Moyes will have a say on the players, and he'll probably give a yes or no. But it's not actually him that does all the wheeler dealing to bring the players in.
Mm-hmm. Last question. Well, for now, Victor, when we get our technical director of football, Moyes will have no say in what players come into the club. He would have to work with the ones he's given. Well, we talked about this earlier on. It's going to be an interesting scenario, isn't it, to see how that works out?
Yeah.
I worry. That's the one thing I worry about. We're going to get a very good technical director in, and they may be at loggerheads over.
It's whether or not, I hate to use them as a bloody example again, but it's whether or not we end up going down that route with Brighton. If you really think about it, some people might not like me saying this, right? I feel like Brighton kind of made Potter look like a bit of a fraud. Because when they had Potter there and they were playing their football, everyone was like, wow, they're really good, like the way they break the play up and playing into triangles, passing's beautiful, scoring great goals, and Potter was there. And then he took the jump, he went to Chelsea and he didn't make it happen. But Zerbi's gone in and they've kind of carried on and got even better. It's almost like it's inbuilt in the Brighton way, the Brighton philosophy, rather than it's the manager. So it'll either be terrible for Moyes and then he's off and they bring in a manager that can kind of get the best out of the players, or it just makes Moyes look good.
Xabi Alonso.
You just, yeah.
Matt, what would you class as a good season? Top 10 and the minimum last 16 in Europa League? Well, we've said this. I mean, I know people don't like hearing it, but for me, I'm the same as you. I'll take a trophy. The trophy, I mean, Prague will live on in my memory until I die.
I'm gonna sound like Nigel now. We've won a European trophy. I just need to see us win. I want the FA Cup.
on the
That's
FA
the
Cup.
one. But for me, the FA Cup is the trophy. I'm very much like Nigel.
Domestically, yeah.
I am a bit of a romantic where the FA Cup is concerned, and that's the
Yeah.
one I'd like to see us, win.
That's the end of the questions, mate. Anything else before you go? Much appreciated, by the way, for coming on. I only asked you in the last minute, so I really appreciate it. As you know, I don't normally have guests on a Monday night in the West Ham Weekly, and I was busy today, and I was struggling to put all the content together about, trying to like read all the stories, everything that's happened at West Ham over the last week. And then when this came up about talking about Declan, I thought, you know what, it's an easy cop out. Let's just base it on Declan. Let's
There's
get
a lot to talk
as
about as well, anyway, isn't there? So
yeah, mate, I really appreciate it. Come on soon, and you should
just
start
ask
doing
me.
you should start doing your stuff again. But we'll talk about that another time. Maybe not. Maybe.
We'll see. I kind of made a promise that I wouldn't do too much content to the wife because I've been
right.
I've been a bit happier since I haven't been, doing too much. But we'll see. We'll see.
Okay. All right. Well, I don't want to put you in a predicament, mate. Really appreciated. Thanks a lot.
No worries.
All right, mate. Thank you, people. Really much appreciated. Bit of a different West Ham Weekly, but depending on how busy I am, the bloody lights have gone out. I'm sure my internet is going to go out at any minute as well. But a bit of a different West Ham Weekly, just focusing on the Declan Rice thing. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it gave you some insight. Just to recap what I said earlier on, the stories today are that Sullivan is holding out for 120 million. Ideally, he wants 110 million with the 10 million add-ons. I'm sure that can be negotiated. We've heard that apparently Man City have now entered the race, which is music to Sullivan's ears. That's another club have come in, but the bid of 80 million plus 10 million add-ons is going to be nowhere near what Sullivan wants. Sullivan wants to hold out for the best British record transfer, for the best transfer record in this country. So that's what he's aiming for. Will they get that? The story apparently is if Sullivan doesn't get the money that he's expecting, then Declan Rice stays. But I think now with Man City, if that rumor is true, if Man City have entered the bidding war, this is it. You are going to see the £100 million plus being broken. If Arsenal really want him, now they've got a job on their hands to actually up the ante and go for one better. Really appreciated. Thank you all for watching. Thank you all for your questions. I hope you enjoyed that. So maybe that's the way we'll do it moving forward. If you're new to the channel, I should say this at the start and I always forget. If you're new to the channel, hit the like button, the subscribe button and the bell notification to let you know when I'm next on. Thank you all for watching. Have a great week and I'll see you all soon.